The pain within the wounds of our childhood, they seek validation. Now, to find validation, pain needs to find a similar or equal source. When it finds its equal source, it absorbs it and becomes stronger. Pain is not satisfied with absorbing a substance of similar or equal value. Oh, no. It has to continually feed and suck that host dry. When pain continuously feeds, it continues to grow and thrive. But eventually it saps its host dry of this life-giving energy that it was getting. And what happens? The host ends up dying as pain kills its host and kills itself. In your mind's eye, just indulge me if you will. Think of pain as being something like a parasite. Instead of feeding off the life's blood of the host, pain sucks the energy sources of its host instead. Now, there are two kinds of pain, physical pain and emotional pain. Both do equal damage. Physical pain feeds off of the body's energy supply to survive, while emotional pain feeds off the body's energy source to survive. And that energy source is the soul. Emotional pain is a soul sucker, and to get rid of it, we have to dislodge its toothy maw. And to do that, we need to understand pain, not from outside of ourselves, but looking inside out. I'd like to thank you all and welcome you for joining me today. I'd like to talk to you about the thing that we don't want to talk about because it makes us feel very uncomfortable. This thing that I want to talk about is unhealed pain. You know, the pain your inner child holds onto for safekeeping, but uses that pain against your better wishes as your pain leads you into those emotional responses that you learn to regret later. Yeah, that pain. We've all been there, and we've been there one too many times with a narcissist. So let's just sit down and get real with ourselves and each other and have that chat, shall we? Oh, I'm not gonna point the fingers. I'm just here to set the story straight, to right the wrong, as we've all been duped into believing that, oh, pain is good. Pain is okay. Pain is healthy. It's okay to let off a little pain or a little steam now and again, isn't it? And it's okay for us who have been traumatized by pain to act out in pain. It's okay. No. And we're told that it's okay for children to do it. It's okay for the elderly to do it. And it's okay for the narcissist. So what's okay for the narcissist should be okay for us. It's okay. We're all traumatized. Let's just move on, shall we? No. I'm not going to do that in this video, and I don't do that in my life. We who know better, we are responsible to do better. It's your responsibility to do what you want with this video. I'm just the messenger. My message can bring healing, but you have to look at the pain in order for healing to come to you. Look at it this way. Healing a wound doesn't need healing if there isn't any pain involved, because if there's no pain, you don't know that there's a wound there. I'm here to share with you that you're not alone. I've been there and I've done that, and I've just recently transcended all this childhood pain stuck within me. You are welcome to geek out on this channel and search my videos for answers. And you're welcome to look at my videos to see what I'm all about and to see if my pain resonates with you at all. Use my social media links on my title page on YouTube to find all you can about your healing transition. And if you like what you see, please subscribe to this channel and give this video and the other videos that you watch a like. This will help get the information out to those who need it and who want to transcend their pain spiritually, as this is spiritual and clinical content, yes, but it's also backed up with personal experience that cannot be dismissed. Your support of this channel will help get the information out, guaranteed. And I know that together, you and I, you watching this video, you sharing your comments, questions, and suggestions, we can help those who cannot yet help themselves. I know you who are watching, if you watch till the end of this video, this one and all my videos will help you too. So thank you very much. My name is Shannon Gilmore, and I am a Christian author. I have 6 titles available on print on Amazon. I am a peer support mentor. I do have training in suicide outreach and prevention. I do have training in sexual assault. And I do have personal experience in transcending the narcissistic trauma from childhood trauma. So I'm just here to help mentor you, to help you live the life that you and God has always intended for you to live. My help can help you shift the battle into your favor by exposing the lies of the enemy, as these lies have been our hindrance all along. So if you're ready, just pause this video, make your tea or coffee, get a little bit more comfy, get in, and I'd like to share with you an interesting concept about emotional pain. So let's go. So what is pain? Well, pain is defined as being an uncomfortable feeling that tells you something may be wrong. Pain begins as being uncomfortable. Whatever we find uncomfortable, we actually resist. Now, resistance causes pain to lock itself within, to feed harder and stronger. The resistance we unknowingly express against pain acts as a fuel source to feed on us with. Ooh. The more resistance we show, the stronger the pain becomes. And if we can't alleviate the pain by resisting it, what do? We bury it under things, but the pain still continues to feed. Now, resistance naturally doesn't mean to stand against something in courage and wield that sword of hope and fight off the pain. No, because this isn't so easily done when we do not have the coping methods in place to withstand the pain. So what happens is when we are emotionally afflicted, it usually is a signal of weakness within, but we don't recognize that. We go into this life, stepping out of our childhood homes, separating ourselves away from parents because the law says you're 18 or 22 now, you're an adult. Go live life on your own. You finished your school, you graduated, so now you're technically an adult, and we assume that we've been given all the tools, all the coping skills that we need to know as adults, when this is not the case. Our parents didn't have all the tools, and they only shared with us some tools that were right and some tools that were wrong to help us cope in our adult years. But by no means do we have this all figured out. We commonly fight back in resistance to pain by ignoring it, thinking that our adult nature is, we're mature, we don't need to deal with that. And we divert our attention by turning our focus elsewhere. Oh, social media. Oh, shopping malls. Oh, vacations. Oh, a car salesman. Let's go buy a new toy. But the pain continues, my friends. We can divert our attention away from the pain, but this is only a temporary solution. The pain continues to feed on our weak areas, and we continue to weaken. And how we bridge that gap, how we try to strengthen those weakened spots, we turn to the methods that we think will help us. Social drinking, sometimes medication, sometimes self-medication with drinking and alcohol. Sometimes people turn to sex, sometimes people turn to social media and social standings where they have to have themselves surrounded by people so that they don't have to deal with themselves when alone. Resistance is not futile, but these things that we use to resist the pain, well, they are futile. It is in the way that we resist the pain that is the exercise in futility, my friends. When we do not understand something, the common nature of humanity is to shut down, shut it out, avoid it, run away, turn away from it, and hide from it or hide it away somewhere so that we don't have to see it, because out of sight is out of mind. It's human nature to fear what we do not know. And we may think we know pain because we feel it, we sense it, we express it. But we know very little of pain because we are too busy experiencing it. Our perspective is one of being too close, too personal, and so the pain we cannot get away from because we cannot see the pain for what it really is. When you have an up close and personal perspectives on something, it means that you're attached to it. And if you have an attachment to it, then you have placed feeling to it and have become sympathetic to it in some way. Until we face the pain, we will never truly know what pain is all about. Pain persists because of our reluctance to face it. Pain flourishes because it needs our ignorance of it to thrive. See, the thing about parasites is that their bite on their own does cause damage. But within the saliva of that parasite, there is an anticoagulant and an antihistamine. And these chemicals are injected into our wounds as the saliva is injected. That prevents the clotting of the blood and prevents the body from attacking the foreign invader, the germs within the saliva, the poison. This gives the parasite enough time to latch onto its host and bleed the host dry. The parasitic pain thrasher gets into our lives by using shock and awe tactics, much in the same way as a real life bloodsucker or parasite does. And by using shock and awe, these are tactics of advantage, of surprise. We never see the trauma coming down the pike until it's too late. We've taken that leap of faith off the bridge when we shouldn't have. We realized that putting salt in the sugar bowl wasn't the best thing to do when grandma is staying over and she has high blood pressure. Innocent jokes and pranks turn ugly quickly, and a quick jump off that cliff at the watering hole at the wrong time of day can turn out to be disastrous. I just kind of interjected some things that we don't think about that are wrong, but are wrong. Innocent jokes innocent fun turns to be disastrous quickly, because the power of pain suggests that tricking people is not wrong, pranking them is not wrong, jumping off a high cliff when there's water there to catch your fall, well, that's not dangerous. If you go into something ignorant of the outcome, ignorant of what the scene really is, you're going to be caught off guard, and that's the shock and awe of pain. Getting caught off guard is because of being ignorant. You don't know what you don't know. And oftentimes we ignore what we don't know. We ignore because we don't want to investigate, because sometimes we fear what we might find out. If we investigate, we might find out that jumping off that cliff into that watering hole, well, that's kind of a bad idea. And maybe we'll find out that some people were badly injured, or even maybe somebody died from doing that. So finding the truth can always prevent us from doing what we want to do. And so we don't investigate. We keep our eyes down and we stay ignorant. And ignorance is always our downfall. It is never bliss. Tragedy of pain strikes on any given day at any given time, and many of us are left unprepared because we're ignorant of the potential pain. We're ignorant of the potential consequences. We're ignorant of the potential dangers. Many of the things that we do now as self-aware individuals, we do have to pay the consequence. But in the case of childhood trauma, let us just revisit that just for a moment, because that's why we are ignorant. This is just coming to me that I'm thinking a lot of times people do not investigate, do not research, do not seek out to heal themselves because they're scared of what they're going to find. Yes, when you revisit childhood trauma, you're going to have to revisit the tragedy, but you're not the same person as you were when that childhood trauma happened. But to the narcissist, they are a stunted child in an adult's body. So are they the same? They're sure acting out the same. They act out in rebelliousness and in childish ways towards all of us. So many of the things that we do now as self-aware individuals, we've given it some thought, but there are still some things that we haven't given thought to, and we wonder why God is punishing us. We wonder why life just has us beat down all the time. And it's because we're not thinking about the consequences, because we're ignoring them. It's our choice to ignore. We have information at our feet. We can easily investigate anything we want to. We can investigate from the foods that we eat, to the vacations that we take, the water that we drink, the toothpaste that we use, the clothing that we buy. We can investigate everything. There is knowledge abound. And why do we choose not to investigate our pain? Because we're scared we might find out something. Most of us are scared of reliving that pain because that pain is fueled with abandonment and rejection. And many of us adults cannot bear to find out the truth, because if you go looking for the truth, you will find what you're looking for, and most of us won't like what we're looking for. Because there is a truth in tragedy. There is truth. When someone sets out to hurt you, it is because they don't like you, yes, but also they don't like themselves, and they're projecting themselves, the way they think about themselves, onto you. And a lot of times in our childhood tragedies, our childhood trauma, when our parents or people that we love and people who are put in positions of power that hurt us, They really did set out to hurt us because they hate us. Not us as people, but they hate our innocence. We have a blank slate. They don't. They have to work out their tragedies and their traumas, and they have to work out their pain, and they choose not to. So they push their pain onto us, thinking that they can get rid of it. And they naturally, and this is not something that they're coherent about, they naturally hate us because we are innocent. We are full of love. As God says, that people will hate us because of Him. And because we're not taught that in our youth, we learn to take that hate and personalize it. And then we take that hate and project it onto ourselves, and we self-depreciate. And then we push that pain onto other people because hurt people hurt people. And this is how pain, the parasite of pain, thrives and multiplies and grows. Pain doesn't filter out who, what, and where to things. Pain gets its in through the vulnerabilities that we already have in our character. And pain doesn't care what age anybody is. The parasite needs a host, and anybody with a soul will do. Emotional pain disrupts the continuity of the soul. It prevents emotional growth. It prevents and hinders learning and knowledge. You can only grow with knowledge. And this parasite creates a latency of maturity and stunts the mind and the heart, creating stagnancy. What is stagnancy? It's a stop. You're not going anywhere. You're rooted. And some people are rooted in their knowledge of 20, 50, 40 years ago. They take what they learned in their high school, in their home life, and bring it into their adulthood and expect life to thrive, even though life is constantly changing, especially with our techno age recently. We're constantly evolving. But there's some people who are just so rooted in their outdated knowledge that they can't move forward. And where one is stagnant, one becomes depleted, and one becomes ignorant of the world around them. And where one is depleted emotionally, pain grabs a hold and looks to the other emotions in that stagnant individual to feed from, just to create its ideal environment. That's how pain works. Pain does not care about you. Pain just needs you to stay alive. Pain prevents you from overcoming life's obstacles. Pain prevents you from moving forward in your life. Pain causes you to become stagnant or immobile, rooted in a way of life that has you thriving just to survive, not to grow, not to help anybody else grow. When you are in survival mode, you become stuck. When you are stuck, your life becomes redundant, and you question the motives and meanings of life as life for you becomes meaningless and you become bitter. Pain keeps you focused on the pain and never allows you to seek for a solution. You want solution to come to you, but you're not willing to go find it because you're stagnant. You're rooted in what you know. And for you, ignorance might be bliss. Ignorance has consequences, my friends, and pain keeps us ignorant. Pain keeps you from making healing your focus, and this prevents you from seeking the healing love of our Father in heaven. The childhood trauma is an emotional burden that, when left to feed upon your spirit, causes you to become one with that pain. You begin to identify yourself with that pain, and you sit within it as you become surrounded by it. The parasitic pain identifies with you as it takes you away from yourself. You lose your true identity when pain leads you to stagnancy, as you and the pain adopt each other. So, where does pain come from? Well, the definition of pain gives us a clue into the origins of pain. Pain, by definition, is this: an uncomfortable feeling. Anything that is uncomfortable makes us feel bad. It's a natural way of things. Uncomfortability is a peace taker. It robs us of our inner peace as it takes away our sense of safety. When our sense of safety is taken away, we become insecure as chaos replaces peace. If we're insecure, we're going to go look to outside things and put our trust in people who may not have our best interest at heart. Chaos and insecurity causes us to put our trust in insecure people, as ignorance rules the roost, rules us and leads us into this state of bliss. Some people don't investigate who they're turning to. They just turn to people who advertise, whatever it may be, safety here. They see the sign and they go to it and they pay good money for security, and yet that security company, the employees within that security company, end up robbing the people blind, their customers blind. It's important for us to use knowledge. We have it here. We might as well use it. Knowledge is free. It's hard to understand exactly where pain comes from. I'm talking about a spiritual sense here. If you've watched my 2 videos on I Am Not My Trauma, you will see where pain comes from and its spiritual root. If you download the 30-page copy of I Am Not My Trauma, that commentary will give you a direct link of exactly where pain comes from, because the Hebrew word of our English Bibles or of our translated Bibles share with us something that is missing. See, again, because of our lack of knowledge, our lack of willing to investigate the words of the Bible, we do not know that there are 6 different definitions for the one word we have in our Bible, which is sin. When you take sin from our translated Bibles of today and go into the Hebrew language, you will find that there is 6 different translations of sin, and each translation of sin is used in its context, whatever the person in Scripture is talking about. There's a word for trauma. There's a definition of sin that directs our attention to trauma, to the negative things we say and do is sinful. The negative things we think are sinful. The negative events of this world that cause trauma are also sinful. So it's important for us to understand exactly where sin comes from. And the definition of pain gives us a clue into the origins of pain. In English, pain is defined as an uncomfortable feeling. Well, anything that is uncomfortable makes us feel bad. And where does feeling bad come from? It's definitely not from God. Feeling bad is a natural way of this world that we live in, yes. And being uncomfortable takes away our peace. And who do we go to for peace and comfort and healing and guidance? God, because peace and comfort come from him. So if pain doesn't come from him, then where does it come from? Well, it's hard to understand where pain comes from because most of us do not stand on the outside of ourselves and dissect our lives in this way that I'm sharing with you now. We don't stand on the outside and give ourselves the distance and the perspective to really see the nature going on in our lives. In a world driven by pain, it's easy to assume that pain was created by certain scenarios and lifestyle changes, and they were. But these only perpetuate the pain to make pain stronger. They aren't an original source from where pain comes from. More pain is added to these scenarios, and this is what gives pain fuel, enabling it to survive and thrive among ourselves individually, but also as a collective unit in society. Emotional pain and physical pain come from a place that many of us do not quite yet understand. It's hard to comprehend, and it's probably more reasonable to say that we have forgotten our spiritual roots, and therefore we have forgotten the origins of where pain comes from. It is helpful to take a step back, like I said, and look at things from an objective point of view, without feelings attached. Just observe and let go of your feelings when you observe your life from a bird's eye perspective or standing on the outside of the fence looking in on your life. To understand where pain comes from, let's step back and observe the governing rules of the planet in which we live. The fundamental laws govern us in ways that we do not think about. And I'm going to ask you to use your mind's eye again, if you will, and just close your eyes and take a step back. Imagine yourself standing at a fence, and on the other side of the fence in front of you is life. And you're on the other side of the fence, and you're walking up to the fence, and you put your arms on the fence, and you just lean on the fence, and you're just observing. The fundamental laws govern us in ways that we do not think about. We take it for granted that we can walk on the ground without flying upwards into the air in weightlessness every time we take a step. We take for granted that gravity holds us down, as we take for granted the forces that propel us along the road at breakneck speeds when we drive a car. And we certainly overlook and neglect to see that there is a rule that governs all things in this life. And that governing rule is the rule of opposites. Pain takes advantage of the fact that we do not realize this, because if we knew this, we wouldn't allow pain into our lives. Pain, by definition, is anything that which causes discomfort. To rid oneself of discomfort, one has to seek its opposite, comfort. These two concepts are opposite of one another, and opposites are a governing rule to this thing we call life. Now, when we're discomforted, we seek comfort. And because of our lack of knowledge, our lack of willing to investigate, a willing to live with this discomfort a little while longer, to go and investigate, to go and seek out the truth before we seek out something that can give us comfort, we just immediately go and seek comfort. And there's many people, many opportunities, many situations, and many scenarios that will offer us an appeasement of our discomfort, but it's only temporary. We're feeling discomfort, maybe we stubbed our toe. Well, there's a pill for that. Let's take some acetaminophen and take away the pain and ignore the bruise, ignore the fracture or the cracked toe, the cracked bone in our little pinky toe. Let's ignore that, because if we can ignore the pain, if we can alleviate the pain, then there's no problem. Same with our hurting heart. If we have a breakup, and we don't want to deal with that pain, we don't want to deal with our responsibility that we had in the breakdown of the relationship, we turn to our social media pages and rant and rave about the other person on them, trying to get people to offer us self-pity. And maybe some of us turn to medications where we sleep off the depression, or we drink our woes away, or we go and have a girls' or a guys' night out on Friday night and party with our friends. Everything to avoid the discomfort. And what we're doing is we're putting our trust in people who also, and situations who also experience and cause discomfort. God's people naturally should not be causing discomfort. And finding people who do not cause discomfort is very hard to find in this world. As Jesus told us, the love of most will grow cold. So it's easy to ignore these things as we've been blinded because our perception, our perspective is too close. But when you're standing on the outside of that fence of life and really observing, I hope you are taking this in and understanding this message for what it means in your life. Now, opposites are a part of everything, spiritually and physically. There is nothing that can exist on its own without an opposite. Think about that for a minute. When we are awake, we are not asleep. When we are talking, we're not silent. When we are walking, we are not standing still. The rule of opposites makes our world the way it is today. In fact, if we did not have opposites, the world as we know it could not exist. Now, free will choice is what makes opposites work in the way that they do. Free will choice governs opposites. Without free will, control would not exist. Free will is the opposite of control. And without free will, we could not make the choice to control the direction of our lives and our choices. When we choose to sit or stand, it is our choice to make. But to take the choice to choose a way, then the concept of sitting or standing would not exist in the way that is needed for that choice to happen. Pain, like everything else in this world, has an opposite. The opposite of pain is pleasure. In our trauma, we want pleasure, but seek pain as we make pain our focus. It is scientific fact that what you think about, you bring about. You think about pain, you bring about pain to you. And you fuel those feelings. It's all about feeling good. It's all about feelings in this world. There is something about this governing rule that we don't think about when it comes to opposites. And that is when we are engaged in doing something, it is natural to give that something our attention and focus. When that something has our focus and attention, it is actually impossible to focus on its opposite. The opposite of what has our focus and attention is ignored. You can't think of standing while sitting. You can't think of standing while thinking of sitting. You cannot think of opening a window while closing one. You cannot think of waking up while sleeping. When you want to sit, you sit. And you sit for as long as you sit. You sit until you make the choice to stand up. You open that window and it stays open until you or someone else chooses to close the window. What if we started to treat our pain the same way? What if we started to treat our emotional pain with the advantageous approach of opposites. You focus on your pain until you choose to make pleasure your focus. But you need knowledge behind you to understand the healthy pleasure should be your focus, not immediate, whimsical, fly by the seat of your pants pleasure. What kind of pleasure you make your focus is important. Those who identify with pain will most often choose the wrong kinds of pleasures, and because of this, they are forced to make decisions based on the pain created by those so-called pleasures. This creates a habitual cycle that creates instinctual behavior that allows a person to choose and claim pain as being their own. In the video courses I share with you, entitled I Am Not My Trauma, I share with you how clinicians have concluded that when you repeat a pattern of behavior or a pattern of feeling or a pattern of thought, this eventually becomes instinctual to the point where you're not thinking about it, you're just doing. You're not mindful, you're no longer mindfully aware of what the choices that you're making are. And this can lead us into disastrous decisions, and it can bring trauma to us, perpetuating the feelings of trauma that we have inside of us. Have you ever said to yourself, my pain is too great to overcome, I'll never get through this. My sadness is overwhelming me today. How can I cope? My childhood trauma is debilitating me. There's no way I can transcend this. Listen to yourself how you speak, because oftentimes we allow ourselves to identify with our pain. Notice how we say, my pain is too great to overcome. My sadness is too overwhelming me today. My childhood pain is debilitating me. My. Do we ever say this about pleasure? Oh, my happiness is overwhelming me today. What shall I do? I cannot manage my pleasurable feelings today. Oh my. My joy is surrounding me today. What shall I do? Now, I'm not trying to be facetious or make fun of anybody or any situation. I'm being animated on purpose to show you how we claim pain as our own, but we don't claim pleasure as our own. We say, I am happy. I am joyful. I am ecstatic. We share with others and we tell ourselves that we are feeling happy, we are feeling ecstatic, but we are not these things. But yet, when it comes to pain, we can say, I'm sad, but most often we say, my sadness is too great to overcome. So listen how you speak to yourself, because how you speak draws negativity to you, especially if you are identifying with that pain. We do not normally identify ourselves with pleasure, and that is because we assume pleasure is created outside of ourselves, just as trauma and discomfort is. However, just like negative feelings, when we think about negative feelings, we bring about negative feelings and negative situations to us to perpetuate the negative feelings that we're feeling and thinking about. The same goes with pleasure. Now, there is a law in human nature that we often don't think about. Christians understand this, but still we overlook this. When we become disappointed with someone or something, the negative feelings become even more validated within us, And we assume that it is the things outside of us that make us feel this way. Yes. However, scientific fact shows that what we think about, we bring about. God talks about the reaping and sowing. You sow, you reap what you sow. And this makes sense that first the seed is born inside of us and we plant it outside of us. And what is outside of us, we harvest back and internalize it again. This is a circular pattern that is on repeat. And we make the mistake thinking that tragedy comes from out there, when first the seed is created in here. Well, in our egos, actually. Pain is discomforting, yes. And it isn't in our nature to live in discomfort, but this is the world that we live in, as we are to live in the world, but we're not of it. So we have to find a way to transcend our discomfort, because God is not discomfort in any way. Now, to live completely in discomfort, well, this goes against the laws of human nature. Pain and pleasure cohabitate together. And where do we assume that they're on the outside of our lives, but they are the seed that is created within us first. As in Christian circles, we know that this is what is called the duality within. It's a natural law that Scripture calls unrighteous and righteous natures. Again, it's opposite in nature. So we were born with these two opposites inside of our hearts. We were born with kindness, compassion, nurturing, and love. And it was our parents' responsibility to awaken that righteous nature within us. But for some of us, for most of us, and many of us, that didn't happen. That was awakened secondary, when it was discomfort that was awakened first, with ambivalence, abandonment, stoicism, apathy. This was what was awakened, as the unrighteous nature within us was awakened first in our infancy. And so the unrighteous nature is dominant in us. It's reinforced as more unrighteous natures. Uncomfortability is fueled or fed to us. And this is what forms our character. We naturally fear love. We know love in its conditional form. If you do this for me, I'll do that for you. If you love me this much, I'll love you this much. If you're only willing to love me this much, then I'm only willing to love you this much. This is the love of the world. And this is what the unrighteous nature has attached to, conditional love. The negativity we receive from our parents feeds our own negativity within. And this negativity breeds more fear, as this negativity comes from fear. We fear the unknown. Now, what is the opposite of fear? Love. Fear, as God says, has to do with punishment. Love covers all wrongs. Love, there is no punishment. Love, there's forgiveness. We fear the unknown, and we fixate on the unknown and breed more fears. And instead of running to what we know, we kind of run to what we don't know, as fear keeps our focused attention on the unknown. But we don't investigate the unknown. It's just we have an awareness, a hyper awareness of the unknown that we fear. And this is what brings trauma to us, as science now, as I said, proves that what we think about, we do bring about. And God talks about this as the reaping and sowing natures. Now, God tells us that we do have a natural nature within us, and this nature is opposite to Him. The law of opposites resides in our hearts as we act out in one accentuation as this character trait is dominant, while the other remains recessive until we make the choice, until it's time for the recessive to become dominant. Then what is dominant becomes dormant until the cycle is repeated, as the cycle is set on a natural course of repeat. The dual nature within us, that's the inclination to do bad, the inclination to do good, which is also called the unrighteous and righteous natures, it manifests through our free will choice. Scientific evidence shows us that what we think about, we eventually do bring about in our lives. Scripture shares with us that what we think about, we will act upon. This is seen when Jesus talks about what you think about. If you think about committing adultery with somebody in your mind, it's as if you've already committed it. So we have a choice to think about good or bad things. Those good things we think about, we bring about good things into our lives to cause us to act in good and benevolent ways. However, those bad things we think about, we also bring about, and those bad things that show up cause us to act in malevolent ways. Good things do not come from bad things, and bad things do not come from good things. Bad thoughts do not bring about good things to us, and good thoughts do not bring bad things to us. When one concept is engaged, the other is dormant or recessive. It is not acted upon. It is not thought about because it is ignored. It is treated as if it doesn't exist. The concept is really easy to see when you look at light and darkness. Light and darkness are both opposites that can cohabitate together if they are both not engaged. But once one is engaged, that one that is engaged is dominant while the other one is recessive. It's still dormant until the choice to be made is to have what is dominant now become submissive, and what is submissive is now dominant. So if you have a light shining, the light is dominant, the darkness is gone. It still exists, but it's just not seen. So what is not seen, it's as if it doesn't exist in that moment until you decide to turn off the light. The light then goes and the darkness reigns. So that is how opposites work. When one concept is engaged, the other is dormant or recessive. In the moment that we are thinking bad thoughts, good thoughts do not exist, but they're still there. They're just receding or recessive. In the moment when we are acting out in bad ways, good actions do not exist. Well, they do, but they're just dormant or recessive. We are not paying attention to the opposite of what we are doing or thinking. And what we are doing or thinking brings or breeds more of what we are doing or thinking. Going back to this concept of parasites, parasites cannot flourish in a healthy environment. Parasites that feed off of negative energy need a negative environment to feed from. Just as I just said a moment ago that good thoughts cannot bring bad actions. Negative parasites that feed on our souls, that feed on our energy, need negative energy. A parasite that feeds off of negative energy cannot flourish in an environment that is bountiful in healthy nutrients, that are bountiful in peace and harmony and pleasure. Pain cannot thrive in an environment rich in pleasure. It's impossible, as it goes against the fundamental law within this world that we are designed to thrive in. The parasitic energy of emotional pain was created in a time when we were extremely impressionable. Childhood trauma began pre-childhood, What I mean is that when you were developing in your womb, you were absorbing positive and negative energy. Now, parasites breed parasites. We were forced negative energy upon ourselves through the negative energy of our parents or the people that hurt us. Even though we love these people because they are our flesh and blood, good cannot come from bad and bad cannot come from good. The bad energy forced upon us tried to turn our hearts into something that which they are not. That is why we in our adulthood are still fighting, because we are emotionally infested. We are emotionally infested with spiritual parasites, and we have been their host for far too long. We've been born with them. We've been feeding them right from birth as it continued until we were the age to walk away and leave that trauma behind. Those parasites of energy followed us as they are what keep us rooted and grounded in the past. Trauma is promoted by pain as pain promotes trauma. Because we were naturally born into an environment of pain and trauma, we were tormented by pain and trauma, and we learned to identify ourselves with it. But we are traumatized and negatively affected, not because we are pain, but because we have yet to become our pain. We may consciously identify with the pain as we sympathize with it, as pain is what we have known for so long, but spiritually, it's not who we are, because we have a duality within us, the good and bad inclinations. And we are choosing to do good, but the pain inside has been strengthened by the pain and trauma on the outside to magnify that pain. And that pain is trying to gain control over our souls. And we're saying, no, we're whispering the good inclination in our hearts that hasn't been allowed to grow and flourish is whispering in the dark, I'm still here, I'm light, I'm love, I'm still shining. And what does God say about the darkness? The darkness tries to destroy the light, but the darkness can't understand the light. And that's what's going on inside of us. That's what's going on with us still living in our childhood trauma. We are still subconsciously fighting that parasitic energy, that vampire. We're fighting from the darkness. We're fighting the darkness from within as the darkness is trying to change us into something that we don't want to and we can never be. Does a parasite who accepts being a parasite want to be anything but a parasite? Does a narcissist want to stop being a narcissist? No, a true narcissist doesn't want to stop being a narcissist. A psychopath doesn't want to stop being a psychopath. A parasite embodies what they identify with. They accept who they are. Pain cannot be anything other than what it is. Pain cannot be pleasure, and pleasure cannot be pain. Does pleasure feed off of pain? No. Pleasure has nothing to do with pain. Pain appears to feed off of pleasure, but that is only because there is an area underneath the pleasure that is weak and that is not entirely fulfilled. If it was fulfilled, it would have peace and harmony and belong to pleasure spiritually. But pain finds a weakness in our spiritual armor, and it latches onto that, and we can cover that armor with a whitewash of pleasure and tell people everything's fine, everything's good. But if we're still feeling that pain, then all is not good, and we're lying to ourselves. We're lying to our souls. We're lying to God. Pain feeds off of negativity. Even though it is painful to watch and endure, it is by your choice that pain continues. It continues because you didn't know how to make the pain stop. But now in this video, you do. Parasites do not feed on other parasites by nature. However, energy that is negative in nature feeds off of like energy because like energy is attracted to like energy. Understanding this allows us to see the conditions of how we must live according to God's word, that is. Good has nothing to do with evil. Light and darkness have nothing to do with each other. Immorality and morality cannot thrive in the same environment. It's impossible. Jesus tells us this, that a divided house cannot stand. Think of your body, your mind, and your spirit occupying the same space, as these three things make up your temple, your house. Your consciousness dwells within the rooms of your house daily. It cannot leave. Your house is divided naturally as you choose how you want to govern your house, with righteousness or sin natures, with your ego or with your heart. Your ego is rooted in fear. This is where those negative feelings reside. Your heart is God's house, and his house is filled with love. And the only way for love to flourish within you is to let the ego's control leave its dominant position. Think of opposites here. Jesus tells us to circumcise our hearts. We have to get rid of the foreskin of sin to expose the love of God and let it shine. There can only be one master of your household. You marry your consciousness with God's character. Now, God says this, that you cannot have two masters. Either one will be hated and the other loved. Think of opposites here, fear and love. When you engage in fear, you are not engaging in love. So love is as if it doesn't exist, even though it still does. So you are hating or turning away from love the minute that you decide to engage in fear. It is your choice which master remains in control of you at all times, fear or love. God, who is love, is our Father and our Master. However, because of how we were raised in our youth, the ego becomes Lord and Master of our house and controls what we say, what we do, what we think, and what life brings to us based on what we think, based on our negative feeling patterns, so that we can live in harmony with fear or live in harmony with love. It's our choice. The law of opposites dictate that God, who is love, cannot kick out the darkness without your choice. You need to have authority over your choices, over the things that you think about and the things that you say and the things that you do. This is why we have Jesus's teachings. The teachings of Jesus in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John share with us how to live in harmony with love. God cannot arbitrarily clean house when he is treated as an invited guest, as we flip-flop between doing good and bad things and thinking good and bad thoughts. A parasite will never stop being what it's designed to be. A parasite saps vital nutrients from its host, eventually killing the host and itself. A parasite cannot bring healthy to its host or itself. A parasite cannot bring healing to its host so that it can continue to feed. The parasite will continue to feed even when the host is weakening. Even when the host is dying, the parasite will continue to feed. The parasite will continue until the host draws his or her last breath. Many people, in their attempts to heal of their emotional pain, turn to negative coping measures, believing that these are pleasurable when they do more harm than good. Numbing the pain only masks the pain and does not dislodge the parasite. Just because you take medication for a headache to dull the pain doesn't mean that the problem is gone. The problem persists. You just can't feel it because the medication has dulled your senses. This is lying. And lying and deceit allows the parasite to grow. As lying and deceit comes from evil, as it's bad, as it's unrighteous in nature. So lying to you and believing the lie convinces you that there's no problem, when the problem can potentially become worse and life-threatening. You just can't feel it anymore, so you don't know. Out of sight, out of mind. So you may go to sleep one night because you have a dull headache and you take some medication for that dull headache and you just can't feel it anymore, but you didn't realize that that headache was a sign of an oncoming brain aneurysm. And had you had the correct medical treatment, your life could have been saved. People treat their emotional pain much in the same way, my friends, creating more problems, bringing more problems to themselves and the people that they claim to love through gambling, drinking, drug addiction, sexual pleasures, eating disorders, overspending, gaming, thrill-seeking, tattoos, self-improvement methods, such as body modifications, hair dyes, manicures, and spending money on expensive clothing and gadgets that can never fill this empty void. And finding pleasure in things that are actually dangerous bring out more displeasure and bring out more problems. And this only creates bigger problems, as these things are how the world copes through conditional love. We will never find our happy within a forsaken world. The happiness of the world is fleeting. The world uses temporary pleasures to create an environment of negativity for us to react to as the parasite of pain attempts to paralyze its host, which is us. When we are paralyzed in pain, we can do nothing to help ourselves. And that's what the parasite wants. And that leaves us vulnerable to more victimization, more parasites. And that is exactly what this parasitic world desires from us. Is this video making sense to you? Give it a like, please, and subscribe to this channel, as your support helps this channel and videos like this flourish and get to the people who need to hear this message. Now that you can see that the energetic negative host for what it is, now that you have identified it, and I help you identify it in the second video entitled I Am Not My Trauma Part 2, you now can do something about it. But what you do is up to you. You need to find a permanent solution for this temporary problem. You need to find permanent pleasures for these so-called permanent negative feelings. These negative feelings are not permanent. They belong to this governing rule of opposites. So whatever negative feeling you're having, there is an opposite in nature. And what you need to do is try to find things that bring out the opposite nature of those negative feelings. Pain is your enemy. Negative feelings are your enemy. The pain is convincing you that you are your enemy. That is a lie, as this is a lie that is used to prevent you from seeing the truth, so the enemy can keep on feeding on you. When you begin to see that there is nothing wrong with you, and that the enemy is the negative, parasitic host of feelings, of negative feelings feeding off of you, you now can make the proper choice. Parasites do not live forever, and there is always a cure for parasites. You got to flush them out. They eventually die, and with healthy food, you can flush out parasites and all those eggs and all those growing parasites inside your intestines, around your heart, within your body. So we can do that for our souls as well. You don't have to let your negative feelings take you down with them. You can finally set yourself free and release yourself from the bondage of the enemy. You can overcome this, and it begins with your choice. You get to choose. When you choose to live, this makes all the difference, because now it's time to dislodge that sucker. But it's not going to be easy. Their stronghold is like a super glue. But you, my dear, you are here because you are in this life to win this life, to win in the afterlife, right? That's what we are all here called to do, to overcome our adversities in life, as overcoming these parasitic battles is what makes you stronger. And your strength creates an anti-venom to the poison the parasite injects into us while feeding. When we allow ourselves to heal from the real raw abuse of the negative feelings we have felt for so long, this empowers us to withstand any other type of negative assault upon our souls. And it's the truth that sets us free, that makes us impervious to the enemy. So here are some steps to help free yourself of emotional pain. Number 1, identify the area of emotional discomfort. Number 2, understand the pain caused by the emotional discomfort. Number 3, trace the root of the pain and clarify it to which event or person is responsible for that pain. Allow yourself to absolve you of guilt and shame of a responsibility that does not belong to you. Number 5, verbally send the negative energy you feel, as it has been forced upon you, back to its source or place of origin. It's simply by going to God and saying, God, I have these negative feelings, and I am asking you to help me send them back to where they belong. Send them to the abyss. Number 6, give yourself permission to love and nurture yourself in a way that you needed, that wasn't given to you during the time of your trauma. Number 7, set up boundaries for yourself to not let toxic people in. And sometimes you have to research people. You have to research their backgrounds. Maybe you have to research a business before you hire them for a service that you need. Do not let yourself be negatively victimized and negatively affected by trauma. It's your choice now. You get to choose. Number 8, choose to live feeling the opposite of those negative feelings that you have grown accustomed to. Number 9, make change a consistent habit, and you will find that habit becomes positive instinct. A habit is made by repetitive every day for at least 20 to 30 days. Number 10, make peace your home and spread it wherever you go. Implement 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 4 through 8. This is the character of love that Jesus is, that heaven's citizens are, and this is the character of love that you are to adopt. This is unconditional love. Now, these steps, you can combine them with the feeling board that I gave to you in the part 2 of I Am Not My Trauma video. The rule of opposites shows us that bad things have a source. Good things also have a source. All things that are bad in nature are opposite of good. The bad things that hurt us are meant to be cured with good. Trying to cure the bad things with more bad things that superficially look good only feeds the wound and keeps it open. Healing the wounds with love covers even old scars. Don't be afraid to tend to those too. I hope that this video has helped give you something to think about. You are not your feelings, and your feelings do not own you. You have more control over situations than you might think. It just takes looking at your situation from a different perspective. And I hope today in this video that this video has given you a different perspective to help you stand in courage to face your fears and give yourself permission to release yourself from them. So please like this video and subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so already. Thank you so very much for watching. Your support means so much to me as you are helping to make this channel grow and make this a community of people helping other people, as this is a channel for healing, hope, and help. It truly is wonderful to see us support each other. And it's awesome that this day and age we have a support system through this video channel. Thank you all so much. Blessings.